Midnight, June 18, 2021, Sichuan province. In a single instant, nearly half of the computing power securing the world's most valuable financial network vanished. It wasn't a power grid failure. It wasn't a hack. It was an execution. Beijing had just pulled the plug on a trillion-dollar industry. For years, the West believed China banned crypto because they feared its volatility, or maybe because they cared about the environment. We were wrong. They didn't kill crypto to stop the future. They killed it to replace it. This is the story of the greatest economic migration in history, and how a decision made in Beijing inadvertently handed the keys to the future straight to America. To understand the collapse, you first have to understand the empire. Before 2021, if Bitcoin was a kingdom, China was its throne. At its peak, Chinese miners controlled up to 75% of the global network. This wasn't an accident. It was a geography arbitrage. In the rainy season, the mountains of Sichuan produced more electricity than the grid could even handle. It was practically free energy. China had cornered the market on the raw material of the 21st century. Hashrate. They manufactured the chips. They built the machines. They owned the electricity. From Silicon Valley to Wall Street, the fear was palpable. If China controls the miners, China controls Bitcoin. But while American politicians were debating bans, something strange was happening inside China. The Communist Party wasn't celebrating this dominance. They were terrified of it. You see, the Chinese economic miracle is built on one fundamental pillar: control. Control of the people. Control of the borders. And most importantly, control of the money. Capital controls are the Great Wall that keeps wealth from leaving the country. Bitcoin was a hole in that wall. A massive digital tunnel that allowed billions of dollars to bypass Beijing's oversight. Rich businessmen, corrupt officials, nervous middle-class families, they were all using crypto to move their life savings out of the reach of the party. President Xi Jinping saw this not as an innovation, but as a leak in the hull of a sinking ship. Remember, this was 2020. The property market, Evergrande, was already starting to crack. The economy was slowing down. The last thing Beijing needed was a backdoor for wealth to escape. But there was another reason, a bigger reason. While the miners were busy printing Bitcoin, the People's Bank of China had been secretly working on a project for 7 years. Project DCP, the Digital Yuan. It looked like crypto. It moved like crypto. But under the hood, it was the exact opposite. If Bitcoin is anonymous cash, the Digital Yuan is a GPS tracker attached to every single bill in your wallet. Beijing had a vision, a cashless society where every transaction is monitored, where monetary policy can be executed with a few lines of code, where the US dollar sanctions have no power. But for the Digital Yuan to live, Bitcoin had to die. The stage was set. The motive was clear. In May 2021, the order came down from the State Council. It wasn't a warning. It was a purge. When the lights went out in Sichuan, the world asked, why? Why would China destroy an industry generating billions in tax revenue? Why hand the advantage to the West? The answer lies in a concept that Western democracies struggle to comprehend: sovereignty. To the CCP, currency isn't just a medium of exchange, it's a tool of governance. Bitcoin represented everything Beijing hates: anonymity, uncontrollability, freedom. But simply banning it wasn't enough. They needed a replacement. Enter the e-CNY, the Digital Yuan. It is the first major central bank digital currency, CBDC, in the world, and it is a technological marvel. But don't mistake it for Bitcoin. They are polar opposites. With cash, if you buy a coffee, only you and the barista know. With Bitcoin, the transaction is public, but your identity is encrypted. With the Digital Yuan, the state is in the room with you. Every time you spend, they know what you bought, where you bought it, and exactly how much you have left. But here is the scary part, the part that keeps economists up at night. Programmability. The government can program this money. Imagine a stimulus check that expires if you don't spend it within 2 weeks. Imagine money that cannot be used to buy train tickets if your social credit score is too low. Imagine money that simply turns off. This is the kill switch for the economy, and Beijing isn't just building this for themselves. They are building it to challenge the US dollar. Through the Belt and Road Initiative, they want to export this system to Africa, to South America, to Southeast Asia, a financial network that bypasses SWIFT, bypasses New York, bypasses American sanctions. This was the grand plan. But there was one problem. You cannot launch a sovereign digital currency while your citizens are busy smuggling billions out of the country using Bitcoin. The competition had to be eliminated. So, on that rainy night in June, the order was given. Panic. That's the only word to describe the days following the ban. The price of mining machines crashed 80% overnight. $1-million operations were sold for scrap metal weight. Miners had two choices: sell everything at a total loss, or run. This sparked the single largest migration of computing power in history. 3 million machines looking for a home. But you can't just plug an industrial mining rig into your kitchen wall outlet. These machines consume more power than a small city. They needed energy, cheap energy, and they needed it fast. Stop number 1, Kazakhstan. It seemed perfect. Just across the border, relaxed regulations, abundant coal power. Thousands of trucks crossed the border. Warehouses were filled to the brim. For a moment, it seemed like the miners were saved, but they jumped from the frying pan into the fire. The sudden influx of power-hungry machines crashed Kazakhstan's aging grid. The government panicked. The people rioted over fuel prices. And then, the internet was cut. Once again, the miners were in the dark. They realized there was no safety in the East. Authoritarian regimes could change the rules overnight. They needed stability. They needed rule of law. They needed a place where private property was sacred. They looked across the ocean to the land of the free. Texas, specifically the Permian Basin. Here, energy isn't just abundant. It's practically waste. Oil companies were flaring, burning off excess natural gas because they couldn't sell it fast enough. It was literally money going up in smoke. The miners saw an opportunity that no one else saw. They didn't just plug into the grid. They went straight to the source. They turned wasted gas into digital gold. And in doing so, they began to transform the U.S. energy grid forever. Within 6 months, the United States became the new king of Bitcoin mining. China had successfully banned the industry, straight into the arms of its greatest geopolitical rival. But as the miners settled into their new Texan homes, a new question emerged. Would America embrace this gift? Or would they make the exact same mistake China did? Because while the miners found a home, the regulators in Washington were just waking up. And the silent war was about to get loud While Texas miners were flaring gas, a much bigger game was being played in the halls of power. China's move to launch the Digital Yuan wasn't ignored. It started a global arms race. Over 100 countries are now exploring their own central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. The future of money is being rewritten, and right now there are two distinct visions colliding. On one side, the authoritarian model. Money is a tool of statecraft, total surveillance, total control, stability at the cost of freedom. On the other side, well, chaos. The American approach to crypto has been a messy mix of innovation and regulation. But in that chaos, something remarkable happened. When China banned crypto, they didn't just ban the miners. They banned the innovation. They banned the developers. They banned the capital. And all of that talent didn't just disappear. It went to the US. It went to Europe. It went to Dubai. Wall Street, initially skeptical, is now building the infrastructure for the next financial system. Think about it. Most stablecoins, the digital cash used in crypto, are pegged to the US dollar. USDC, USDT, billions of dollars in demand for American debt, fueled by the very industry China tried to kill. In a supreme twist of irony, crypto might actually save the US dollar's dominance, not destroy it. But the war isn't over. The Digital Yuan is live. It's being used in cross-border trade today. And in the US, regulators are still fighting over whether to embrace this technology or crush it. The crypto wars are moving from the physical minds to the legislative chambers. We stand at a crossroads in human history. For thousands of years, money was just a physical object. Shells, gold, paper. Now, money is code. And whoever writes the code writes the rules of the world. China made its choice. They chose safety. They chose control. They bet $3 trillion that the future belongs to the state. But history has a funny way of punishing those who try to control the uncontrollable. By closing the door, they locked themselves in. And they locked the future out. The technology is neutral. It doesn't care about borders. It doesn't care about politics. It simply flows to where it is welcome. China's loss was the world's gain, but the question remains for us in the West. Will we learn from their mistake? Or will we build a digital prison of our own? The choice is yours.